What up, everybody? It's Double G and John LaRocca here for a special holiday week edition of the Fight Game podcast. We are pre-recording this, so hopefully by the time y'all are listening to this, John and I are hanging out with our families. So what we have done in the past on holiday weeks, so that we don't go dark, and we actually have a show, is we kind of talk about a historic show. And this one isn't necessarily historical because of how good the show was, because this was very much a transition time for WWE, and it was a downtime, as we'll talk about, overall in U.S. wrestling. But I always liked this time frame because stuff is happening almost to the point where Vince is just like, in some cases, he has some really good creative ideas, and in other cases, he just has to throw his hands up and he's like, man, I'm paying the price for, the previous years and in the really good Hogan years, and now I'm paying the price. So it's just an interesting time frame. November 25th, 1992, Survivor Series, which was originally going to be the Ultimate Maniacs, the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage against Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. And by the time the show happened, and you really kind of had to be paying close attention to even know that the main event got switched, Mr. Perfect gets moved into the main event. And it's so jarring of a storytelling change that, if you weren't paying attention, you probably looked at it and was like, what the heck happened here? Like they just flipped they flipped a guy who was on the other side just for this show. But they did it well, but I'll explain kind of just the last second decision and the amount of effort that Vince was putting into the show and what he had to do on Primetime Wrestling. So John, we do this show on Fight Game Media called the Watchback. So we're going to do this review of this show in Watchback style. We've done a handful over on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel and the network. And you and I did one with Jeff Hawkins not too long ago on Halloween Havoc from 1993. So we're going to stay in that style of show. And so I'll do a lot of history stuff, and John can kind of crack wise when he remembers something or he has a thought. I'll do a little thing that Dave does in the issues leading up to Survivor Series, where he takes a look at the best matches of the 90s so far. And I want to go through these and see if John remembers them, if he watched them. If it makes him want to go back and watch some of this stuff. And then we'll talk about Bret Hart winning the world title, which was a giant surprise at the time, I know for myself. And then we'll talk about all the stuff leading up to the reason why they had to change the main event. And then we'll talk about the card in of itself. So I wanted to start with post SummerSlam, because SummerSlam features it's in Wembley, and it features Randy Savage against the Ultimate Warrior, and the whole thing was whose corner was Mr. Perfect going to possibly be in. And then the actual main event, especially to the home audience, was the British Bulldog beating Bret the Hitman Hart for Bret's Intercontinental Championship. And so you get this great send-off in Wembley. And I remember reading in Bret's book how, he kind of took credit for the whole match, because I think in his book, he said the Bulldog was just really nervous and forgot all of his stuff. And James Dixon, and I'll reference James Dixon's book because it's very recent. It's called Titan Shrinking. James Dixon wrote that the Bulldog and the Anvil were kind of partying really hard during that week. And I don't know if it was because of the nervousness or just because of that was the business back then for these guys. But then goes into the ring. He and Bret had gone over the match. They knew all the stuff that they were going to do. And in the middle of the match, Bulldog tells Bret, I forgot everything. So you're going to have to lead me through this whole thing. So maybe Bret's credit that he takes in his book is probably rightfully so. Okay. So that show happens. It's the first time one of these pay-per-views is outside of the U.S. The pay-per-view even airs a little while after. It's not live in the U.S. It doesn't air on pay-per-view live in the U.S. So there's kind of this weird thing with it. And I don't think it was very successful, and they would not go back internationally for some of these shows for a little while. What else is happening in the wrestling world at this time? Well, I mentioned business being way down. Jerry Jarrett has a working agreement with WWF where the USWA becomes a feeder system. Vince sends some of his talent, some of his younger talent. Jarrett helps uses them to help promote his major cities, and some USWA talent will be sent to WWF at the same time.
Yeah, I
What
think
do you remember about this?
I remember reading it in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated first, seeing and I remember like Jeff Jarrett, I think showed up in December on like some I don't think it was Madison Square Garden, but it was like on the East Coast house show, and I was like, wow, and then I thought it was really cool. And then WCW earlier kind of countered that with working with Smoky Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But then once Bill Watts was out of WCW, Jim Cornette's like, see you later as well. And they started working with WWF as well. So they had two groups feeding them talent. And I thought it was a great thing for the WWF at the time, and a smart thing, because, territories were closing up left and right, and there's only a few left. And I think it was good to keep talent fresh and also get fresh talent from those groups.
So at SummerSlam, Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior was for the world title. The Ultimate Warrior wins by countout, but the title would not be on Savage for much longer. Ric Flair beats Randy Savage at the September 1 TV taping to regain the title. The match had Vince McMahon so unhappy that he had them restart the match. He had them go all the way to the back and then come back out and restart it. And this is the time frame where Rick starts not feeling well, which he then says is vertigo related. And he's losing a little confidence at the same time because he can't be the same Ric Flair. But they put the belt back on him, which we then learn soon is because of a transitional reason. So Savage and Warrior, who just face each other at SummerSlam, create the Ultimate Maniacs. And I don't remember this, but there's a segment where they give each other gifts. Do you remember this?
No, I do not. It was on prime time?
It may have been on Superstars.
Okay.
And so I think Warrior gives Savage maybe a armband with tassels or something, and then Savage gives Warrior some sunglasses or something.
Okay.
And that's kind of like creating their friendship. And I asked you this, but I always thought it was weird that the Ultimate Maniacs, when they were together, because they would actually have a match on Saturday night's main event, which we'll talk about, they would wear the Hulk Hogan colors. They would wear similar to when it was the Mega Powers, that red and yellow. That's what the Ultimate Maniacs wore as well.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that as well. Yeah.
So I don't know. That was kind of weird. And I don't know if it's like because of Savage or they wanted you to remember Hogan. Like I thought it was kind of weird. Wouldn't you want to get away from like the red and yellow if Hogan is not around?
Well, Savage always had those bright colors, so maybe they were going with that, but they didn't realize how close it was to maybe the Hulk Hogan colors there.
All right, so then we get to the issue that I was mentioning where Dave looks back at the best 90s matches so far. So we are in the closing towards the end of 1992. So we almost have 3 full years of the 90s. And this is Dave's list here. At number 1, now this is North America. At number 1, Jushin Thunder Liger and Brian Pillman at Super Brawl.
Great match. I love that match. One of the best opening matches in pay-per-view history. Yeah, definitely.
Eddie Gilbert versus Cactus Jack stretcher match, August 91 in Philadelphia.
I've seen it. I've seen the handheld version. I don't know. Maybe it won't hold up as much as it did back then, but it was unique then because they didn't do a lot of those kind of matches. So,
Number 3 says that it was taped on the same night as the stretcher match. Eddie Gilbert versus Cactus Jack in an explosive match.
It was the best of 3, like the 3 stages of hell kind of thing.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Number 4 was a match in Mexico City. Huracan Sevilla versus Bestia Salvaje. Hair versus hair. I have not seen this match.
Don't think I've seen that one.
And another Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman match in December of '91 is number 5.
Was that the Omni?
East Rutherford, New Jersey.
I've seen that. I've seen the handheld version of that show.
Number 6, Lex Luger versus Ric Flair, Greensboro, February '90. Is that Wrestle War?
Wrestle War '90. Yep, good. Glad my boy Lex made the cut.
Number 7, Ric Flair versus Brian Pillman.
Yeah.
February '90 in Gainesville.
Hell yeah, we covered that match.
Ric Flair versus Ricky Morton in March of '90 in Columbus, Georgia.
Huh. Is it on television?
It doesn't say. It just says March 13th, 1990. Ric Flair, Ricky Morton.
I know that in February '90, on like the main event, Ric Flair and Arn Anderson had a really good match, the Rock and Roll Express, which I would love to see them release back on the Vault. Please, Vault, release that one.
Number 9, Sting versus Cactus Jack, explosive match, June 20th, 1992.
That was a false
Beach
count.
Blast?
That was a false count anywhere match. A Beach Blast. Yeah, that's Beach Blast, June 20th.
And then El Dandy versus El Satanico, hair versus hair, December '90, Mexico City.
I've seen that match. It's pretty good.
All right, now for tag team matches.
Oh my God! Just group it all together, Dave, and make this issue short.
Lists. Number 1, War Games '91. Flair, Wyndham, Vicious, Zbyszko versus the Steiner, Sting, and Brian Pillman.
That's number 1?
That's number 1.
I would think 92 War Games would be better than that. I like 92.
92 is right below it at number 2.
Yeah.
91 is pretty infamous for the calling of spots very loudly.
The murder of Brian Pillman.
The murder of Brian Pillman getting dropped on the back of his head and upper neck.
There's no way 91 is better than 92. I love 91. It's fun, but 92 was just far superior.
I like 91 better, but it's also the time in which I was watching it. I was so dialed into WCW in 1991. I think Rick Steiner's telling somebody, "Put me in the figure 4, man."
Yeah, or go.
So Sting, Wyndham Rhodes, Steamboat, Koloff versus Rude, Eaton, Anderson, Austin, and Zbyszko in the War Games '92.
Yeah.
So only Sting and looks like Larry Zbyszko were repeat War Gamers right there.
Well, remember Larry was the substitute for Arn Anderson in the
That's
91
right,
because Arn Anderson had that a hamstring injury or something.
Atsushi Onita, Tarzan Goto, El Hijo del Santo versus Horace Boulder.
Oh, yes, this is L.A. Yeah,
Tim Patterson and Negro Casas, May of '92.
Yeah. I've seen this match in L.A. Yeah.
Midnight Express versus the Southern Boys, July of '90 in Baltimore.
Great American Bash '90, damn straight. One of my favorite tag team matches.
Number 5 is one of mine. Steiners versus Sting and Lex Luger.
I knew this match was on the list for
Super
sure.
Brawl '91, the very first Super Brawl.
This is the one I need to put in for comfort food watching.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the match that you just talked about, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson versus the Rock and Roll Express, February of '90 is number 6. And then Flair, Arn Anderson, and Sting versus Buzz Sawyer, Great Muta, and the Dragon Master in January of 1990. That was the Clash, right?
No, that was a Power Hour episode. I just someone had a clip of that match, and I shared it or retweeted it with a quote just saying this match rocked, and that the babyface 4 Horsemen with Sting shouldn't have lasted only 2 months. It should have been at the minimum 6 months, I thought, in 1990.
Yeah,
they started to turn.
Yeah,
they're hot. They're hot. I mean, there was something bubbling there in early '90 with Bayface Horseman, but the only problem was that JTEX Corp was running old, and they needed some new heels. But we're getting all a little off topic, I think. I could talk about this old stuff all day. So
at some point we may have to do a watch back on some of that stuff. Okay.
Yeah. At some point we got to do the Survivor Series 92 watch back.
Okay, so Brett wins the title, beats Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And I remember my buddy Ed calls me up and he's like, "You'll never guess who's just won the world title." And I was like, "Hogan." He's like, "No, it's not Hogan." And I was like, I went through a bunch of guys. I even threw some WCW guys in there. I was like, Sting's in WWF. It's like, nope. It took me like 5 or 6 chances to get to Brett. That's how surprising this was for me, that they would actually push Brett to the world title status.
Yeah. This is the first time I also heard about Saskatoon. And when they say, "What in Saskatoon?" I'm like, Saskatoon? Where's this at? Was it Superstars? I think he just walks out in the opening of Superstars with the belt. I think is it Vince or is it Gene Okerlund he's talking to? And he has a belt over his shoulder. I'm like, what happened here? This is crazy. I mean, I was like, and couldn't believe Ric Flair held the title for like a month, you know? So, yeah, man, amazing moment. 92 had 2 of those. Like we had that Bret Hart, right, beating Flair, and also like I said before, I think we talked about it a few months ago. Here I am, like August of 92, just turning on NWA Pro like early in the morning, just on syndication somewhere, and they just say, "Hey, Ron Simmons beat Big Ben Vader." Watch WCW Saturday later, you'll see the highlights of that match. I'm like, what? I'm not doing anything for the rest of this afternoon until I see that.
So right around this time, Dave starts hinting that there's something going on with the Ultimate Warrior, but he's just not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's also talks of a meeting with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon happening. It'd been since WrestleMania, when Hogan and Sid Justice had the match, and Hogan had been off TV since then. U.S. business has been down, though they went overseas and did some really, really good tours. But in the U.S., they're way, way down. And obviously, Hogan has a little bit of leverage here to possibly return. And so there is talk of Hogan. So Dave writes that while I'm told no deal is made, word I'm getting is it's better than 50-50 that Hulk Hogan will be back in early 1993. And obviously he comes back for WrestleMania in Las Vegas, WrestleMania 9. All right. So Dave's writing about TV ratings being record lows, WWF canceling house shows left and right. WCW also canceling house shows, and the ones that they're running, they're not drawing. And he writes, what's bad is the wrestling business is in a tunnel and there's no sign of light at the end. Pretty poetic stuff there by Dave. He's basically calling curtains on the wrestling business here, at least in the US. So the Saturday night main event happens, and Shawn Michaels beats the British Bulldog to win the Intercontinental Championship. So Bulldog doesn't have it for very long. And the explanation is that because Brett is the babyface champion, you don't also want a babyface Intercontinental champion. So this Brett switch, probably not that planned out, and thus you have to change the title and get it off of the Bulldog because of you don't want 2 faces to hold the 2 top titles.
But wasn't it that didn't Davey fail a steroid test and that's why he was fired?
That's not why they took the title off of him.
It's just because they had a babyface world champion. They had to have a. Yeah, I mean, I think Davey. I love Davey Boy Smith, but I don't think he was a guy that was going to ever carry a singles championship long term. I think he's okay as a short term U.S. champion, Intercontinental champion, etc. But he just doesn't have the promo chops. I think as a singles, he was best as a heel when he had like Jim Cornette as his manager who could talk for him. But yeah, Yeah, I didn't think he would. I remember being like super happy that Shawn Michaels beat Dave Boy at Saturday's main event, because I think maybe just kind of through tradition, there's always like a long running heel Intercontinental champion, and I thought Shawn was like going to get the Intercontinental title anyways soon.
Yeah.
So I was pretty stoked about that.
Also at that Saturday night's main event, the Ultimate Maniacs in their match together defeated Money Inc., who were the tag team champions, by countout. That was the opener of the show. And the main event, do you remember the main event to this show?
Bret Hart versus Papa Shango?
Bret Hart versus Papa Shango.
Yeah. Do you know what time of a match I did not remember was the Mega Maniacs versus the Money Incorporated? I kind of want to go back and watch it. How was it? It was a fine TV match.
It was. I mean, as it's getting going, that's when the countout happens. So
I loved how reliable Money Incorporated has always been. Like when they were, when Hogan came back, they were putting in that match with Hogan's return and stuff. So it's kind of crazy as I'm watching this show. I'm like, wow, like in August of '93, DiBiase would be gone for WWF.
Yeah, totally. We were talking about guys who've been on WWE for longer runs than we realized before we started the show. How long? So DiBiase would be what, late 86 or
87?
87.
Yeah,
through 93.
I think they started teasing him in summer of 87, right?
Yeah, you might be right.
And yeah.
So that was Saturday night's main event, and it was the last Saturday night's main event for 14 years.
Yep.
It was on Fox, so it wasn't on NBC. And it was only the second Fox show. So Fox picked up Saturday night's main event, but they only had it for 2 shows, and then they just canceled it. And they did a 10 million viewers for the show, which back then was just not good enough to get back on TV.
Now, fuck, it opened everything up for them. I remember the Saturday's main event, and I remember like I watched it because I was just a big wrestling fan, right? But I remember I didn't feel the hype of the like Saturday's main events of the past. I remember just feeling something was off about it, the feeling of it, and all of a sudden it just disappeared until what? Is that 2006? They started bringing these things back. Yeah,
they brought it back in 2006. And do you remember the closing moment of actually no, I'm getting ahead of myself. The closing moment of this show was after the Undertaker. I think Paul Bearer does his talk show, and then as they're closing, Bobby the Brain Heenan is like on the phone, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "There's a chance that the Ultimate Warrior may not be walking down ringside with Randy Savage at Survivor Series," and so they leave you with a cliffhanger, and then they do the entire angle on Primetime Wrestling. And so you're talking like, so many less fans though, where you're doing your angle. So you do the tease, like it would, I'm sure if they had the, and maybe they did, but they just chose to do it this way. But I'm sure they would have wanted to do the angle on actual Saturday night's main event instead of Primetime Wrestling. But that stuff was recorded probably a good 2 weeks ahead of time, I'm guessing.
Plus, Perfect was a host on Primetime too, wasn't he? One of those panelists. They had a weird roundtable thing with like Hillbilly Jim and like who was it, Hacksaw Jim Duggan there or something like that. So,
actually, it's almost 3 weeks. They pre-recorded Saturday night's main event almost 3 weeks before it aired, so those matches were already taped. So they do the whole angle on Primetime Wrestling, and Savage is doing his interview, and he's talking about picking his his partner, and I'm sure there were some fans in the audience possibly thinking that Hogan was going to show up. But he's, Macho Man is thinking, and Mr. Perfect is right there, and he mentions Mr. Perfect, and Bobby Heenan's like, well, of course you'd want Mr. Perfect, like he's the perfect partner and this and that, and then he's kind of laughing, just like, he what would he want to do the match for? And then then they have an interview with Ric Flair and Razor Ramon, and they're kind of like making fun of Mr. Perfect. Like, who would want Mr. Perfect? Like, why? You know, he's like our manager, or he's on the sidelines with us. Like, why would you want him? And so Mr. Perfect's getting kind of frustrated, almost like one of those, like, you know what? I used to do this, and I used to do it really well. And so you get to the end of the show, and of course the baby faces are egging Bobby Heenan on, and Bobby Heenan slaps Mr. Perfect in the face.
Oh,
and
so
that
good.
was, that was the end of it for Bobby Heenan. Grabs him by his tie, and then Heenan's begging him, "Oh, I'll buy you X, Y, and Z, and I'll pay you so much more."
A car, a boat.
and then Mr. Perfect gets the pitcher of water
and
pours it right on Bobby Heenan's head. And
Heenan
there's your setup.
Heenan made it work.
He was so awesome. It was amazing.
He did it. He was the one that turned Mr. Perfect babyface. He was excellent. Perfect was good, but Bobby was just what a masterpiece by him. Really was.
Yeah, Perfect had to be like the old vet who still has his pride with him. And he's getting frustrated, but he's not showing it. He's not showing his cards yet. And he's got to get to that moment of like, I may take this thing into consideration. And once he does that, then that's when Heenan, kind of turns on him a little bit, as if like he's not good enough anymore. And that just gets him going even more.
Did Dave list how long of notice that Perfect had?
How long of a notice?
Yeah, like, hey, we're gonna go. There's no Warrior.
No, I don't have the actual timeline of it, but it's not very long from when Warrior and Bulldog get fired to when they have to switch the show. So it's like, I think it's like the week of, or maybe the week before, or something like that.
Because something I didn't notice, I've watched this a few times since I originally watched it in 92. But I noticed on the rewatch, I'm not saying Mr. Perfect was, out of shape, but for Mr. Perfect, you could tell, like, it's the guy coming off his couch, wrestling. But he still looked good, but it wasn't like what we're kind of used to with him, So, but he did well, I thought, in that match.
Yeah. So then, then the reason that we're given, we're given a couple different reasons. Like, Dave is not quite sure at the time of the firing. Like, I'm sure he had an inkling of the steroid stuff, but also Warrior historically is not happy with his payoff. He's not happy with his future plans. He's not happy with X, Y, and Z. He's just not a happy guy with WWE, WWF. And so Dave's kind of hedging on that. And then it comes out that it's related to the drug testing that they were doing at that time. The wrestlers themselves were a little bit smaller than the previous era of wrestlers. This is why a Bret Hart and a Shawn Michaels can be the main event match in Survivor Series, though it wasn't the most marketed match, but it was the main event. Bret was the champion. And so I believe the way, and this is also in James Dixon's book, I believe what happened is WWE had this Dr. DePasquale, who was basically like, if anybody is doing this stuff, like, and Vince doesn't, suspend them or punish them or whatever, he's like, I'm out of here. Like, he was so adamant that. And then as we know, Sid Vicious is actually fails a steroid test before WrestleMania, and Vince still has him wrestle in that match. So this is kind of ongoing. And the story that James Dixon tells in the book is that Vince McMahon calls up the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior senses that he's calling him for a bad reason. The Ultimate Warrior had just learned that his growth hormone provider was just arrested. And so Warrior basically tells Vince, oh, I know why you're calling this guy, blah, 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 blah. And oh, by the way, Davey's the one who gave me his name. And so because he linked Davey to this guy, Vince has to fire Davey as well. And that is why they were fired. Now, I know people still believe that it could have been over creative, whatever. I'm just saying what James Dixon book stated. And it is the better story, by the way.
Yeah,
if you want to run with one, it's way more entertaining. And so, because Vince, the last time Warrior kind of pulled that thing on Vince, where he was like, I'm not going to go out in the main event with Hogan against, was it Sarge and Colonel Mustafa and Adnan at the previous year SummerSlam. Like, he held Vince up essentially right before that main event was about to go in the ring. And Vince said, okay, you got whatever you want. And then he came back after that match and Vince fired him immediately. And that's why we never saw him again. So they have that history. So you could see Warrior doing it again and Vince going, nope, you're out of here, and them changing the main event as well. So I could tell why both stories exist. So you get a change main event. You do it on prime time. Dave estimated that the Fox audience was maybe 3 or 4 times higher than what they would do on prime time on cable. So, your hardcore audience is definitely seeing what's going on, but maybe your more casual audience is probably a little surprised at the pay-per-view that they're paying for, that Mr. Ultimate Warrior is not on this show.
Do you remember it was on Request, right, for us, Request TV?
Yes.
I have a feeling I remember, like, when they would, because they would show the commercials of upcoming events on pay-per-view. I want to say, like, a couple days leading up, they had a little crawl with.
Oh, really?
I think they did with, like, Ultimate Warrior not be on this, would be replaced by Mr. Randy Savage, I believe, if I remember correctly. But I just remember, like, wow, I just remember being confused at the time.
Yeah, totally.
All this was going on.
Yeah, I kind of I had known the previous story, like not at the detail that Dave would write it. I didn't know it at that detail, but I knew that Warrior was gone because of creative or whatever reason. So I knew that there was some static there. So when he was gone again, I was not surprised, but the lateness in which they had to change it is what surprised me. So that sort of told you that it was probably kind of an important thing that happened.
Like, when this time around, like in '91, when he was all of a sudden gone from WWF after SummerSlam, like, I was pretty bummed because I was a Warrior fan. I was excited when he returned at WrestleMania and at WrestleMania 8. But quickly after that, I think I was kind of like, you know what? Not a big deal. Like, I was getting into the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels at the time for WWF. So when he left, it was confusing, but I was quickly over it. I wasn't, like, missing him anymore. And when they brought him back in '96, I was like, wow, they're bringing him back in '96, and that didn't last too long either. So
wearing the baseball hat,
in
his gear,
yeah, what a goofball.
Okay, so here we are, Survivor Series, November 25th, 1992. I sent John some questions about this show. We'll go through the questions, then we'll go over the card, and I'll have John try and guess the Dave Meltzer star ratings for this show.
Okay.
All right, number 1 song on the pop charts here, November of 92. None other than How Do You Talk to an Angel by The Heights.
Wow.
That was an interesting one.
That was on a TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, The Heights, I think, was the name of the TV show, I think.
Right.
That was the group's name, though, too, I believe. I think it was Jamie Walter, right?
I'm trying to remember what TV show that was. That's something that would... Is that something you missed, too, Garrett? TV show themes?
Shows? Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
I was going to say I missed TV shows because there's no TV shows on. You're not going to see a... American musical drama Thursday night at 9 p.m. on Fox.
You want to know something that offends John LaRocca, Garrett?
What?
When the skip button comes over the title sequence on the streaming service.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no way. I'm listening to this Taxi theme, all right? It soothes me. I'm ready to laugh.
So I'm mostly in control of the remote control. And, like, Crystal's not afraid of being in charge of the remote control, except she's not as quick on the trigger as I am. Like, I anticipate when I need to hit that skip button just because I've probably been watching pro wrestling for so long.
It's in our DNA. It's just
and so you know, sometimes she'll just hand over the remote, but you know, as you watch, sometimes as you know, if you binge watch something, you're probably not going to watch the intro every time. If you watch 4 episodes of something, you don't need to watch the credit screen in the beginning. And so if one of us is asleep at the wheel and we don't hit that button, we just turn to the other and go, "Oh, so we're into intros these days, huh?" And then that means you just hit the skip button.
My buddy hooked me up, my same buddy who hooks me up with the TNA shows. He hooked me up with a sitcom that I loved growing up and that gets never anywhere on any streaming service. It's Valerie / Hogan's Family. He's hooked me up with all 6 seasons, and I'm like in season 3 because they killed off Valerie, and I love that theme song. One of my favorite theme songs in TV history. And I'm always like listening to the whole thing, and sometimes I'm singing along because I love it so much. I just love that show. And my youngest Katie goes, "Daddy, you watching this show again?" And then my wife Katrina, who's like, I don't think she's ever doesn't remember watching something non-HD. You know what I mean? Like she's 9 years younger than me, and or I'm not used to watching in this case like a Rev 1 or 2 version of the show, so it's kind of a little blurry than what she's used to. I watch a lot of Rev 1 and Rev 2 copies of VHS tapes of wrestling, so I'm used to it. And she's like, "How can you watch this? Like, I can barely see their faces or something, right?" And then like Chloe, my oldest, walks by and she's like, "Dad, how can you watch this and can't even see them?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you guys get out of here. Leave me be with my Hogan's Family."
They would not have liked to watch WrestleMania 3 with me because my WrestleMania 3 tape was so bad. When I first watched it on the network, when we got the network, I was just amazed at how clear it was. I was like, "What? That's what this thing's really supposed to look like?" You know, I can relate Hogan's Family to current wrestling, right?
Okay.
So Hogan's Family, good show. Valerie Harper was in it, and then I think she wanted off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Sandy Duncan,
yes,
her. Right. So the dad in this show, played by Josh Taylor, who also plays a dad in another show called Beverly Hills 90210. He is the dad of Dylan McKay, one Luke Perry of Beverly Hills 90210, and of course, who's Luke Perry's son? Jungle Boy. So we connected Valerie's family to current wrestling. There you go.
Love it. Love it.
Okay. What was the #1 movie in America at this point? None other than the Disney animation of Aladdin.
No, okay, makes sense.
Robin Williams on the mic. And then what is the #1 television show at the time? One of your all-time favorites, Home Improvement, was the highest rated in 1992 around this time frame.
Love that show. One of my wife's favorite shows of all time. She watched the whole 11 seasons like on her phone. She was like constantly watching it. Yeah. And then she moved on to Married with Children, which I thought was funny too.
Married with Children, yeah. Okay. So I had some questions for you, and we're watching this show from 1992, made for the eyeballs of fans in 1992. So, our 2025 eyeballs are watching this, a show that we've both watched many times over the years. I probably haven't watched this in, I'll probably say at least 20 years. I'm going to guess.
Same with me. I don't think I remember watching anytime recently. Yeah,
I had this thing on VHS. It wasn't one of my go-tos because my go-tos were usually in that like 87 to like 91, 92 time frame. So this is the tail end of 92. If I'm watching anything from 92, it's going to be the Royal Rumble. And just rewatch that thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So as you're watching it, 1992 WWF Summer Survivor Series, what has kind of aged well? Like, what does not stand out as like being old and dated?
On this show, old and dated. God, all the gimmicks seemed old and dated for sure.
They do, very much so.
I think the production still looked pretty slick.
Production was good.
I thought
the show looked really good.
I thought there's like, I love the entrance of Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. How the camera comes like swooping on an angle and it catches them coming out. They like looked like such big stars. I thought the production was a lot better than I remember. For some reason, I just think 92 around this time being dark, and I don't know why. Maybe because it was fall or something like that, but I just felt like it's just dark, and so but it was brighter, and I thought it had a good energy to the show. So I thought the show held up well when it comes to the excitement.
The thing that I think aged really well is that the idea of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the main event, because this is kind of where wrestling is edging towards. Now, it wouldn't always be like that because WCW's giant comeback run has Hogan on top, of all people. And so it's not, but the little men in WCW were kind of like the undercard workers and, would have the good matches, and then you get to the main event. But, the comparison to today is, I think, a pretty good one. There are going to be more people built like Bret and Shawn, and even smaller in today's wrestling. And I thought that aged really well, because this is really the transition period in trying to re-educate your fan base about what pro wrestling can be. And they're forced to. It's not like it's not like Vince wanted to do it. Like, he's still talking about, physiques and how people are put together as an announcer. That's kind of his deal still. Yeah. But he was kind of forced into redoing this thing because of the steroid stuff.
And it's amazing. It's always funny to look back, and they went smaller with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. But those dudes are pretty big guys. I mean, they'll be like heavy, like bigger heavyweights than most guys that currently today in wrestling. So,
well, this will kind of give away when we're recording this, but I just watched Bronson Reed and Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown. They're in the last the John Cena tournament. Carmelo Hayes, a little dude. Like, I'm sure this version of Shawn Michaels is quite a bit bigger than Carmelo Hayes inside the ring. But Carmelo Hayes is also really good, so he can actually do the job. But it is, if you would put them together, I'm sure Shawn would be quite a bit bigger.
And Bronson's not that tall; he's just wide. So,
okay, so the other question, so the flip side of this question, is what hasn't aged really well? And we're going to get more of these because, of course, it's 1992 and they're not doing the show for 2025. But as you watched it, what didn't age very well?
It hurts me to say this because I love him so much, but some of the Bobby Heenan jokes kind of. But yeah, some of those I thought were like, oh, okay, but but I love the guy. So
it's you had mentioned this, which is the gimmicks. The idea of a team called the Head Shrinkers. The having a man, a character in gimmick like Tatanka, and Bobby Heenan doing the chant, of course. Lots of the stereotypical stuff just doesn't age well. The other thing that I thought was the idea of a nightstick on a pole match. So I don't remember where they mentioned it, but they kind of warned the viewers, like, what you're about to see, maybe a little graphic, or they said something like that. And so when you actually watch the match, the payoff is Bossman getting the nightstick. He loses the nightstick, though, and Nails actually gets the nightstick, but then Nails loses it, and Bossman hits the Bossman Slam to win. But the idea of warning the viewers about what they're about to see, and it was the tamest thing that you would watch in wrestling today.
And plus, it wasn't too long before this, the visuals of the riots in LA, which, those video footage of the police and police brutality at the time.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned it, I'm just putting that together right now.
The LA riots would have been, 5 months prior or something like that?
Yeah, when I found out one of my teachers was real racist, that was crazy.
Oh, man.
She was like teaching, but her mind was elsewhere. and she was just really just totally in a different place.
Yeah.
And she just sorry. She's apologize. My son's in LA right now, and I'm just like stressing out. And then this guy in my class named Hong Do, freaking a class clown of a guy. He goes, "Hey, maybe he's looting." And she goes, "Do you see my skin? You think he'd be looting?" And I was like,
Oh, wow.
and I was like, that's not right. I'll never forget that. We're like, what the hell? Yeah.
Wow.
Herman Intermediate School, if y'all want to know. No, I don't know.
Wow.
I forget her name, but I remember this. Wow. It was like, cool.
All right. What? Yeah, the tough transition there.
Yeah.
Was there anything that just reminded you of 1992 that was on this show?
The bright colors of costumes, especially like high energy.
High energy, right? That's the one that stood out to me.
Yeah,
with the highlighter colors that they wore.
Because cross colors were in.
Mm-hmm.
Just I remember I didn't have any cross colors, but my friend chatting.
Biker shorts is kind of like late 80s, early 90s with the highlighter colors.
My best friend growing up chatting was always on the cusp of trends, and I remember one day he's wearing these bright color outfits and the cross colors. Man, that was I remember that was the thing for a little bit.
What about just the idea of the Razor Ramon character, right? Like you couldn't have like maybe I'm trying to think of it if there are characters today who are like doing fake accents and stuff, but the idea of this white dude being Puerto Rican or whatever I think Cuban, not Puerto Rican, being Cuban, and doing Scarface accents, and like people just going like, yeah, I believe him, and me going like, wait. He didn't have a mustache, and he was like Magnum Scott Hall. Yeah. Like, what's going on here?
Obafemi, I think. Well, I think he's Nigerian, but he kind of over.
Yeah, I think he does his that. Yeah, he does the accent that he doesn't really have.
Yeah, and I don't know anyone is playing.
I guess Kofi Kingston early on was very sot, but he dropped.
Jeff Cobb's playing a Tongan light right now, so
yeah, but that did stand out to me. I was like, the idea of Razor Ramon, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But hey, the gimmick worked for him big time.
Yeah, he was cool, and it became one of the bigger stars in the 90s for sure.
Was there a match that showed up on this show where you're like, gosh, I don't even remember this match. I don't remember this guy. I don't remember this person being on this show or this time frame of when they were wrestling?
Well, we just talked about the Nightstick match. I totally forgot about Big Boss Man versus Nails, Nightstick on a pole match. And I was completely shocked. I was like, ooh, Nails is going to be good. But you know what? For whatever it was, like 5 minutes, whatever it was, I thought it was a really good match.
Match was totally fine.
Yeah, it was kept short. I thought Nails was good for what he can do. Boss Man was awesome. Crowd was extremely hot for this match. So, yeah, this was also I don't think one of your questions was a pleasant surprise, but this was definitely it for me.
It wasn't a pleasant surprise. It was that coffin match. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, don't knock Kamala, man.
I'm not knocking Kamala.
I won't stand for Kamala knocking.
If anybody I'm going to knock, it's the Undertaker. That's my
boy, Kamala. I managed him.
Did you? Oh yeah, you did
Kim
tell
Chi
that story.
one time.
You told that story on this show before.
One time, Kim Chi. Great. That's one of the favorite times in wrestling. Just really fun.
So I think from a timeline perspective, what surprised me was seeing Yokozuna, and I was like, oh yeah, he does come around this time because they've got to build him up for the Royal Rumble.
I think it was just a few weeks in already.
So he comes out, and I was like, man, I forgot he was on this show. But immediately when I saw him, I knew who he was facing. I immediately knew it was going to be Virgil.
yeah, and he just murdered Virgil with that bonsai.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't remember, but Yokozuna debuted as one of the third Samoan.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that actually air or that just something they didn't air. I remember seeing the clip. I think originally they were going to, was he Coquina or something like that, or they didn't. Maybe I forget, but
yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
All right, this is one that we both kind of had a hard time with. You can change one result on the card. Which one do you change if you just could wave your magic wand?
I thought all the results made sense. I didn't think anything sounded. Maybe there could have been um, a better, exciting finish on the tag team match, which was the Money Incorporated and who was it? Money Incorporated, the Beverly Brothers versus the Natural Disasters and the Nasty Boys.
Beverly Brothers, by the way, also guys that I didn't even remember being on this show.
You talk about straight up 1992 colors too, as well, the purple.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe they could have had more of an exciting, any more of a definitive finish where like the Nasties win and beat the Money Incorporated and sets up a clear challenger for the tag titles. Like that match was so hot with Bossman and Nails, it seemed like that feud was, at least for this crowd, was working. They could have maybe done a finish where Nails wins and they could kind of extend it. But I'm guessing at this time, I'm thinking Vince is probably having buyer's remorse when it comes to Nails, and I know they end up, I think soon after this, kind of have a falling out, right?
Yes, it's not even what I would call a falling out. It is.
Oh yeah.
Nails being, I think he's frustrated with payoffs or something, and then this is in the Titan Shrinking book again. Supposedly he's just riding in the car with Berserker, and he comes up with this plan to make up a story that Vince McMahon like came on to him, and he's telling Berserker this story in the car. And Berserker's not really happy with his stuff going on either. So he's kind of egging him on a little bit and just probably not thinking that he's actually going to go through with it. And so they devise an entire plan to show up for TV so that Nails gets like kind of barges in on Vince to have a meeting. And Berserker's basically the door watchman. Like he's got to watch for like Sarge and Pat Patterson and all those guys who are trying to, who may be interested in what Nails and Vince are talking about. And so he's got to like kind of watch the door and like be like, oh yeah, they're fine, they're they're just talking or whatever. And when this happens, it is the television that the Steiner brothers debut. So the Steiner brothers are watching Nails assault Vince McMahon in this office, and that was that whole story is depicted very well in Titan Shrinking. So if you're interested in that book, that is a fantastic story to read in, all these years later. It was kind of insane.
I didn't think John Nord, the Berserker, was there that long in 92.
So the other Berserker story from that book is that at Wembley, Hawk is blitzed out of his mind.
Yeah.
And Berserker was his party partner for that time. And so Berserker's blitzed out of his mind as well. Hawk shows up at the pay-per-view, but they got to protect him because he's not like functioning correctly. And so Hawk goes AWOL and he doesn't come back. And so the Berserker kind of goes AWOL too. Eventually the Berserker comes back, but he also kind of like took a hiatus because he was just out there partying with Hawk and they just did not come back. So craziness in 1990.
Well, him and John Nord and Hawk are from that same, that bouncers at the club and longtime friends in Minnesota. I think they might have maybe went to school together, or maybe it was just a bouncing thing at that club that a lot of those guys were doing at the time, early on there.
Now, the one result that would have changed, and I'm thinking about it from the perspective of, so you're in November, you got December house shows, you got January house shows, you're setting up the Royal Rumble title match between Brett and Razor is the match, right? I would have actually had Flair and Razor win by countout so that you could prop them up as winners. And then I would have Mr. Perfect kind of clean house at the end. But just because you need Flair for December and then you need to build up Razor for January, and that's not going to make a giant difference at this point. But that would be the one thing that I might have thought about changing just for those reasons.
Yeah, I thought, I mean, they had to have some kind of a non-finish because you couldn't, Savage probably doesn't want to lose again after he's lost the title on September 1st to Flair. Perfect just turned babyface. You definitely don't want him losing.
Yeah.
Razor's just brand new. You don't want him losing. Flair still has rematches with Bret Hart in December. So I think the non-finish is good, and that's why they put it on early. I'm sure. I think that was the second match, I believe. So, third match.
Third match.
There
was a dark match on this show.
Was it Crush or something like that?
It was. Oh man, did I just ruin it? I just don't.
Crush.
I had it open and then I closed it. It was Repo Man, I think.
Crush and Repo. Oh, the Battle of Demolition.
Yeah.
Members now doing wacky gimmicks of
Crush won by submission. I wonder if it was the head crush or whatever.
Must have been the head crusher. I wonder if he was doing the bright color Kona Crush at the time, or just coming in as back as he must be, because he got rebranded as Kona Crush, right, for a short time. And yeah.
All right, so let's go through the Meltzer star ratings, and we'll go through the entire card here.
Wait, you know, I was just thinking about. Okay, if it wasn't perfect, maybe they could have debuted Crush
in that spot.
And I know it wouldn't be as memorable, probably not. But I mean, like,
try to make a new guy.
But if you remember '93, like they were putting a lot of steam behind Crush early on. So maybe that could have been interesting if that would happen.
One other person who I forgot was on this show, Doink the Clown.
Yes. What match was it?
I think he's hanging out during Martel and
Tatanka. I was surprised when the crowd started standing up and looking to the entranceway. I'm like, then it hit me like that must be Doink. And he kind of like they missed his spot. They missed his spot where he's blowing up balloons and he pops in front of the kid. Yeah.
Okay, so the opener, Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu beat High Energy, Owen Hart, and Coco. Dave would never call him Coco Beware. It would always be Coco Ware. In 7:38, when Fatu pinned Owen with a splash off the top rope, Dave said, good action-packed opener. What do you think he rated it?
I'm going to say, to me, it was like a nice 3-star match.
2.25.
I thought, I liked it. I thought, I was like, wow, this is really good. I think High Energy is not long to be together. I think Coco leaves soon, and then they attempt to create the new foundation with Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart, which they still had the wacky balloon parachute pants.
Okay, Big Boss Man pins Nails with what Dave calls the Bubba Slam in 5:43 in a nightstick on a pole match. He wrote, considering the respective positions of each on upcoming shows, this result was something of a surprise. So he kind of felt the same way that you did.
I'm going to say Dave gave like a 1.25. For me, I'm giving it, maybe 2.75. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, Dave gave it a star.
Yeah.
Tatanka pinned Rick Martel with the Samoan drop type move.
Yeah, I love this. It's called the End of the Trail, and I love how he executes it. Just perfect and clean and safe. I remember being shocked about this match happening on Survivor Series because it was a match that happened on WrestleMania 8. And because they really didn't do too many rematches like that, especially on the undercard. You wouldn't see it again. But Tatanka, they're very high on. I thought Tatanka was fantastic. And then Rick Martel is an awesome worker, heel or babyface. I always felt like if Vince didn't see what he saw in Shawn Michaels as a heel, and he just kept the Rockers into just going to WCW or whatever, my guess is Rick Martel would have been that Intercontinental Champion spot.
I want to say that I read somewhere, and it might be in that book, that Rick kind of helped Shawn with the character a little bit.
I'm sure he did. Yeah. He's Rick Martel's. He's a treat, man. He's awesome. He's one of the guys I would always tell young wrestlers to study because it's babyface or heel. You can learn so much from him watching his matches. Yeah.
So Dave writes, the Clown. I guess he didn't call him. There wasn't a Doink yet. The Clown showed up playing heel, which pretty much distracted the audience away from this match as they were reacting to the Clown and had their heads turned away from the ring. Match had a lot of rest holds.
Well, they had a lot of rest holds because they were resting when Doink came out. They don't like, because
you don't want the action to happen.
You don't want to,
and they're not
because people are not looking at them. So you just grab a hold because they knew this was going to happen. Oh, by the way, the oink's going to come out, and,
right?
So grab a hold. I thought this match was pretty good. I have about 3-star match as well.
Dave has it as 1.25.
Dave, he just didn't. No flips, maybe.
I think Dave was actually live at this show because I think he wrote that he watched it live and then he watched it at home, and he actually liked the show on the viewing at home a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
You going back to your point about the rematch, and this is also in the book, which is James Dixon believes that the reason why they went away from the elimination style matches, the Survivor Series tag matches, is because they simply didn't have any depth at this time. And they kind of they do a pretend Survivor Series match later in the show. It wasn't the full-on Survivor Series tag match that they would do where you'd have like 4 or 5 teams on each side. But yeah, that was the only one that was even a little bit of an ode to the old Survivor Series style matches. And James wrote that he said it was because they just didn't have enough guys. Their roster was not stacked at this point.
There's a pretty big significant buy rate drop from like 90, 91. So I think that could have been it too. Maybe Vince was thinking
kind of ran its course with the matches.
This ran its course. And
I mean, what are the steps, right? Like we talk about that in today's wrestling. Like, okay, you're having this match. What is the reason? A lot of times back then, just having Hogan be in a match was steps enough.
Was big enough, yeah.
Yeah. And so
90, he played with the Soul Survivor match, I think it was called. The winners of each Survivor Series match will face off in the Ultimate Final Battle or something like that. And then 91, he's like, okay, let's put up. There's a drop from 89 to 90. Maybe the fans want to see championship matches, big, Hogan in a singles match. So he did Hogan, Undertaker, and did a title change there to kind of, get interest in the Tuesday in Texas, which is like a couple days later, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the whole idea to do that title change was just to see if they could sell a midweek pay-per-view.
And then I think here he's like, okay, well, I don't think the team of 5, Stardust 5, is like what we're just going to do a regular traditional pay-per-view, and we'll have one match that kind of gives them the warm and fuzzies about Survivor Series of old, but it did not. But for me,
no, it wasn't all that interesting either. All right, Randy Savage and Mr. Perfect beat Ric Flair and Razor Ramon in 16:29 via DQ. Good match, but not nearly what you'd expect from the talent involved on such a big show. Perfect showed a lot of rust and wasn't in his best shape since the whole thing came down in the last 2 weeks. As a babyface, he doesn't need to take those wild bumps, so it should be easier on his back. Savage worked most of the match, taking punishment. Perfect was over really strong as a super wrestling technician. Ramon wrestled like Scott Hall once again. That was Dave's note on Scott Hall. Flair was really up, but he wasn't good enough to carry the other 3 while doing the one-man show. Finish was one tired cliche after another. Ref bump, second ref came in. Perfect gets perfect plex on both men, but the other made the save because the refs were delayed in making their call. A weak DQ for double teaming for a main event match. Earlier, Razor hit Savage with a chair, and Flair got Perfect in the figure 4, but the faces made their own save when Savage came in with a chair to both men. This makes 3 consecutive pay-per-views where the announced main event ended without a clean finish, which sounds more like the old WCW. That was his review.
I'm going to say 3.25. I like the match.
That's exactly what he gave it.
Yeah.
All right, Yokozuna pinned Virgil in 3:34 after sitting on him.
Yeah, the bonsai bomb.
Yoko is going to be a moneymaker. This is exactly what it should have been.
Yep. Yeah. Showcase match, get over match. Feature the new big heel on a pay-per-view, getting a win over, a long tenured babyface. I think it was perfect for what it needed to be. So I gave it For me, it's about 2 stars, just because I think it accomplished everything it needed to accomplish.
Dave gave it 1.
Yeah.
All right, Natural Disasters and Nasty Boys beat Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers in an elimination tag. He wrote that the work itself was solid from start to finish, except in spots where the Nasty Boys didn't seem used to doing babyface moves, and Money Inc. had to walk themselves through the move. Earthquake pinned Bo, which gave the faces a 4-on-2 advantage. Psychologically, that is pretty hard to get a lot of crowd reaction when the heels are being pounded while being outmanned. IRS pinned Typhoon for the second fall after DiBiase tripped him. And then the third fall lasted 5 seconds with Sags pinning IRS with a schoolboy.
Yeah. You need to have it kind of boom, boom at the end there. I thought actually, like Dave said, I thought the work was good. I thought this match was a lot better than I remembered it being. I just wish it had more of a exciting finish. Like I would have been okay with the Nasty Boys hitting their big elbow on the top rope, hitting DiBiase or IRS. But I'm gonna give it 2.5.
It always weirded me out when Ted wore the white trunks.
Yes.
Dave gave it 1.25.
He started doing that in '92, right? He did that SummerSlam as well.
SummerSlam too.
Yeah.
All right, match number 7. The Undertaker pinned Kamala in 5:27 after hitting him with the urn and then put him in the coffin. Kim Chi had gotten the urn away from Paul Bearer, and Kamala got it first, but was too scared to use it.
Yeah.
Terrible wrestling, some funny facial expressions by Kamala.
Yeah, this is not the Kamala of 1996, or 1986. We had that big run with Hogan on the house shows, doing great business. But love Kamala. I was getting a kick out of his scared facial expressions. I'm pretty sure Dave, this is a dud level for Dave.
This is exactly what it was.
I'm sure. It was funny because I don't remember Undertaker pinning him.
Yeah, I didn't
and
remember
then rolling him in the casket. I guess that was a stip. I don't remember being a stip later on. I think it was just you just rolled the guy in the casket, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the stupidest thing was the nailing of the coffin at the end after he rolled. Because I'm like, dude, how long is this going to take to hammer these nails? I hope he does get some good shots and get this done fast. But that took a little bit of a while. But love Kamala. Steve Lombardi did a great job as Kim Chi, of course. So. And it was fun to work with that guy. It really was.
All right, main event. Bret Hart made Shawn Michaels submit in 26 minutes and 40 seconds with the sharpshooter to retain the title. Started slow, but the crowd was into it from start to finish. Technically excellent, with several hot moves from both sides and no flaws. Yeah. Finish saw Michaels come off the top rope with a drop kick, but Hart caught his legs, turned into a scorpion. After the match, Santa Claus came to ringside and held Hart's hand up. Would have been a perfect spot for an angle, but instead they gimmicked snow to fall instead of fireworks for the triumphant babyface, winning clean in the end. The one thing I'll say about this match, before you give your star rating here, like I wonder how an AEW crowd would watch this match, because this match is not boom, 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 boom. This match is, okay, we're going to use this thing to set up this next thing. And this thing might be, some sort of, headlock or whatever they were doing. But it kind of like, it chained into stuff, and the reversals and the counters all really made sense. And that's really what the match was. It was like a very sensical match. Like everything led to what the next thing was going to be. But as I was watching, I was like, man, if this match was on one of the AEW pay-per-views, I think a lot of fans would find some of it really boring.
You think so?
Yeah, just because a lot of the wrestling today is just so set up so that you don't look at your phone. Like you're like that's what they're fighting, right? They're fighting people like not paying attention for some. So you got to, they're actively trying to keep people's attention. Yeah. And that's not what wrestling was in 1992.
It didn't work at that pay-per-view watch AEW. We're all on our phones talking.
That's us though. We're all, old school wrestling fans.
We're getting older and tired watching 5-hour shows. But
I mean, and a lot of because you have to do so much on an AEW show to satisfy that audience, a lot of the stuff that they're doing is very similar. And so you're kind of just seeing similar things over and over and over and over and over again, which you would not do in 1992 because you didn't want to take away from the momentum of one of the other matches. You wanted to have your own match and not, overdo it for the main event or whatever.
I mean, technically, fundamentally, this was damn near perfect. There was a moment where Brett got out of hold by digging his fingers into Shawn Michaels' eyes with that. I thought that was awkward and weird, but other than
he would heal every once in a while like that.
Well, Hogan, but he would rake the back and all that stuff. But the heel was really healing. I don't think Shawn did anything really that heelish. I think they wanted a really tight match. They wanted just like those lockups and those headlocks and fighting in the ropes. And, I thought that was all great stuff. I gave this match 4 stars. I liked it a lot. It was an awesome peek in the future. And unfortunately, this is when the time when they liked each other and both had hey, this is our time to kind of make this our place. But then, of course, because the wrestling world is very competitive and these guys were both their competition, so it ended up, of course, dissolving and then famously so.
Yeah. No, but I was just like, the pace was definitely, they started slow for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was longer, the pace. Yeah. They're going long, but I thought everything was just clean and well set up and just really well done. And again, it is kind of nice to see a match without, 7 finishers, at the end. It was just, you kind of like when the match that the move that Dave said. So Shawn Michaels comes off the top rope. He kind of does the feet first,
like he's going for a drop kick,
right. But it's not how you would turn on the side. So it's kind of a tell that he's setting himself up for this move. And Brett puts him in the sharpshooter. And with my 2025 eyes, I was like, oh, I wonder, how's Shawn getting out of this? Like, that was my first thought, was how's Shawn going to get out of this? Because that can't be the finish. But then I was like, wait, no, I think this is the finish. This is exactly what the finish is. So it's just kind of funny watching it today. And they're like, they have like 3 more reversals set up coming out.
Even though Brett got that move over already with his icy title run, but I think they really want to hammer home, like, okay, this is the leg drop now, like the sharpshooter is what they want people to get up for, of course, for the finish. I thought Shawn's selling of the sharpshooter was excellent. A lot more convincing than 1997 for sure. But I thought this match was pretty much damn near flawless technically. For sure. Like I said, that rake of the eyes by Bret Hart, I didn't really like. I wonder
what the pressure was like on these guys, though. Like, how much pressure did they feel they had main eventing this show, which is only the it would only be the second post Hogan pay-per-view, right? Because back then it was only Mania, then Survivor Series, because King of the Ring would come the next year.
Yeah.
So it'd go Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. So this is only second post Hogan show, and no Savage and Warrior, and actually Brett would have been in the main event at least. In the UK, that was technically the last. So he was in that spot before, but Shawn hadn't really been in a big spot like that ever before that.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Well, I'm sure Brett had a lot of pressure being the champion. He really got, as we know, like that. He carried that honor with the highest. It was a big honor then, for sure. And Shawn, his big first main event, there definitely had to be pressure, but they also knew, like, okay, we got to steal the show, and I'm glad that Vince gave him like 26 minutes, right, to tell their story. And I think that's probably what could have been the discussion about, like, with Pat Patterson, I'm sure was definitely heavily involved in this too as well. It's like, okay, well, we've given fans 10, 11 minute, maybe 15-minute matches with Hogan. They've seen those, now we're going to give them, now we have a classic wrestler. Let's give him a classic wrestling match. And I thought the crowd was really into it, and was really excited for the finish. So I liked it. And that's what you want to do. You want to bring them down and bring him up to that for that finish. And they executed perfectly. That superplex on the top rope, I remember, like, it's funny because they did it not off the top rope. It was off this. Brett was on the second, but that still looks so much more impressive than when I see today when two guys are on the top rope and they're bouncing forever. And yes, they fall from a higher distance, but it just the realism is not there as this one was with Shawn Michaels and Brett, because they're also not just the execution of it. It's the execution of their facial expressions, their body language while they're setting this up. It was perfect. So yeah, that's one of the coolest superplexes I've seen.
Dave gave this one 4.5 stars.
Yeah. I can't argue with that one.
I was thinking about, as I was watching this show, Vince, like the matches that were on this show, I would say outside of the Ric Flair and Razor Ramon against Randy Savage and Mr. Perfect match, outside of that match and outside of the main event, none of them were really all that compelling. I guess if you were into this Boss Man and Nails match, like, maybe you're into that. And that's kind of cool. Yokozuna versus Virgil is a match that, could have been on Superstars of Wrestling for all, for in that time. So really, Undertaker and Kamala, if you're an Undertaker fan, this is not a crazy match for the Undertaker, considering he's wrestling Hulk Hogan just 1 year before. So, it really is just a 2-match show. And, thankfully, both of those matches were staggered. You go 3 matches, then one of your main events, and then 3 more matches, and then you got the other main event. And that's what really made this show, because like I said, otherwise it was kind of like it was kind of like very house showy with some of those other matches.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of setting up for the future. There were the future direction. But would be the new generation. I think that's what they would. Though there would be a little pit stop before the new generation when they, Vince is trying to hold on to some of the past success, bringing Hogan back. But we find out soon that it, ultimately wasn't successful, because it lasted 6 months, maybe total 5 to 6 months, right? He was already gone by. I think he did some stuff.
Hogan lasts, like, does he come in February or March? I don't exactly remember.
No, it's. I want to say it's towards the end of, maybe it might be early February. It's either last Raw of January or the first Raw of February, either one. And then he leaves. Doesn't he stay after he loses the title to Yoko? Doesn't he wrestle Yoko a few times before on the house shows?
International matches.
European tour.
Maybe one like US show, but I think it's mostly international stuff.
Yeah. And then he's gone, and then it becomes the branding of the new generation.
All right, nice look back in time there, and we'll be back with our normal show post Survivor Series. December already about to be here, so hope that everybody had a good week. Hopefully you got to spend some time with some friends and family, and hopefully that we were a little bit of chicken soup for you during this week. Little goodness there, little home style meal there, talking old school wrestling. So for John LaRocca, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.